war movie, and The Thin Red Line is a movie about war. Like the Rogue Squadron series, I would say, is really an exploration about the horrors of war and this sort of like wanton nature of life and death.
I mid explanation, I transitioned us over into the live show. It's really funny because I got to see like the transition and like the fade in, and you're like, and then the Rogue Squadron is basically what I imagine a
Well,
viewer saw. I really enjoy that.
Justin just trying to get me canceled out here. Let me put the
Getting
Twitch
canceled, talking
stream.
about talking about what you talk about, man.
Look, if I get canceled for loving Rogue Squadron, then I don't want to be right.
Then I don't want to be live. I don't want a next season. All right, I'll sync us up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, sync us up. That's fine.
You okay? You all right? Do what you gotta do.
Yeah, well, I was just trying to put this link up.
Do
All
your
right,
link first.
sync us up.
You all right? Okay. 3, 2, 1. Clappity clap clap.
So synchronous.
Synchronous.
So such beautiful, just such a beautiful, synchronicity of human flesh. And oh, we got an CDC via email. Did you put that one in?
Yeah, I got 2 of them.
Yeah, there's a good one about drum corps.
That's a good one.
Why is the channel does not appear that we are live on Twitch? Oh no, we are live on Twitch.
Okay, good.
I'm an
What to
idiot.
say?
Hello, dads. Oh, that's from Smitty.
Hello,
Smitty
my
is already
dads.
on here. Hello, our son, our beautiful
My
beautiful son, who looks more and more like the lead singer of Wolfpack every time I see him.
Every time I see him, I think Justin Smith might be Jewish. He's just so.
I meant that. I think he looks like a mix of Theo Katzman and oh god, who's the other guy from Wolfpack with the glasses? He has the glasses. Jack Stratton. Yeah, he looks like Jack Stratton and Theo Katzman's son, which is a total compliment. He's a babe.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of them.
The long hair. You really got it going on, bud.
Yeah, you do. I gotta say, it's powerful energy. Let's see. This is just me trying to get more people to do Wolfpack. You should dress up as Jack Stratton for Halloween, and you should get one of those big, like a microphone with a big over-the-top wind catcher, and just like walk around like this, just like his little weird walk. Yeah.
I
Please
know
send us pictures.
Tim Watts is one of my favorites. Yes. So I'm glad that he sent this, and I'm glad that you saw that before we started.
Yeah. All right. So this is Chapel Bell Curve, which if you're watching this or listening to it or, generally here at all. I am live on the Twitch chat. So if you have questions via Twitch, you can get on there and ask us questions. And please don't overload what I will admit is a pretty underdeveloped set of auto modding rules right now. So please, God, please help us.
Please be sweet.
Be nice. Be so nice. Anyway, but if you want to throw a question in the live chat, we will try to pick it up. We have a bunch of Ask CBC questions, and we're here to talk about the Arkansas game. So anything we want to talk about before we get into the actual recording of the episode that are the rest of our audio only listeners for people who need their ASMR with audio only, is there anything else that we need before we talk to them? Is there anything we need to talk about?
Was that hard to get out?
I didn't say it was good ASMR.
That was really funny. You have a hold on.
What's
You
the weather channel guy who has like or the reporter who has like a stroke mid sentence or whatever? Have you
I
seen
don't
that?
know. I was thinking of the kid who says, "Has anyone
The kid
really
who's like, whoever you
been
ever,
far even has decided to use even go want to do look
I
more
don't know.
like?"
I don't know why nobody listens to this podcast. I keep telling people it's a podcast about sports, but really it's just us trying to complete sentences and not doing it, and that doesn't get listeners. I don't know why.
I don't know.
I was never
what's the
really
deal?
good at. I was never really good at dating, and I'm assuming that it's somehow related.
It's a lot like
I'm not
that.
really a good. Yeah, I really need a prospector. I a diamond in the rough type, and luckily I married one.
Oh, I got rice all in my crotch. It's kind of like that one time that on YouTube, the guy commented, "It's been 10 minutes and these idiots only talked about Hamilton." I love that energy.
Well, listen, if you came to this podcast for anything but Rogue Squadron novelization takes, let me tell you, buddy, you are in the wrong place.
This
All right,
is
Arkansas.
the wrong tree. You've barked up.
Yeah.
All right.
Similar to Porkins from episode 4, both Arkansas's team and the two men on this podcast are crashing and burning ineffectually into a giant battle station of gravity. All right, let's do it.
Are you ready? I'll see us in.
See us in.
Now I'm only going to be able to see us in our little video squares as going down the Death Star.
They came from trench behind.
And then Porkins is like,
every time you see my hands on this stream, it becomes increasingly obvious why I don't know what to do with my hands at any given moment. All right. See us in.
All right.
It's getting this energy. I wonder if this is what this is doing to the white balance of this. My poor camera.
I'm still white.
Oh, let's do it. I'm in too good of a mood.
Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve. Welcome. Welcome to Chapel Bell Curve, a stats focused podcast about UGA football. I'm Justin.
And I'm Nathan.
And we're here to review the Arkansas and Georgia game. What a game it was, you know? It was the very first note you have on your notes. It's cracking me up because it just says it was weirdly anticlimactic, which is a pretty good kind of like a good zinger to kind of end the whole thing. Like if you're wrapping it up, if that were the headline, I'd probably still read that article. But we have a lot to talk about today. We'll talk a little bit about everything. I'll say. The ratio of nervousness to like not even relief, but just sort of like surreality, like surrealness. I don't know what the nominative form of surreal is, but like just how surreal it was in relationship to how nervous I was before the game was just it was really weird and swingy. Lots of me looking at the people I was sitting with and just being like, okay, yeah, I guess that happened now. But it wasn't like about bad stuff. It was about good stuff. Yeah. Just like, huh. Okay.
Well, Justin, tell me, what was your experience for this game? How did you watch the game? Or
it was
not
a good
watch
game.
it? I assume you watched it.
I absolutely did not watch it. No, I did watch it. I went to the game this time around. It was really great. I got to go to the game. I got some tickets from a friend. Sat up in the 600 seats. I was skeptical at first because I've sat in some nosebleeds before, but these are not really nosebleeds. Nosebleeds typically have that feeling of like, you feel like you're going to fall into the stadium as you walk up the steps into them, but these don't have that. And really, I was able to kind of see the whole field, which was really nice. The only thing I would say I didn't love, there's two things. One, I was closer to the surface of the sun, and it shows if you're watching this video. Like, I burnt all over.
Got some red. You got some red on you.
Very red on me. This is even like lots of zinc oxide. It's the Irish in me. It burns real quick, but close to the surface of the sun. Two, I couldn't, the redcoats don't point to me. And so early in the pregame, the pre-show, I got to, see all the pre-show stuff. And I was like, well, even when they point to us, like it doesn't have the same effect because they're pointing down to the, the 1 and 200s, which was fine. But because I've heard it before, but that's one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. But that did clue me into the fact that the stadium was so loud. It was so loud. And even up in the 600s, I could tell just how loud it was. So I can't imagine what it would be like being in it, like down there in the bottom bowl and the lower bowl. But it was absolutely wild. I got to stay the whole time. Got a free hot dog. Some guy gave me a hot dog. The true Athens experience, I feel. He got too many hot dogs, the age-old story. Too many hot dogs.
The first thing they say about hot dogs is just
what's that?
Like, you always get one when you're in Athens. That's the first thing
that is what they say. It's
hot
on my.
That reminds me of when I was in Athens.
It's on my driver's license. Actually, it says it right there under Athens, Georgia.
It's the classic hot dog city because we like our hot dogs plain. None of the Chicago style bullshit.
Yeah, just dog and bun, dog and bun, dog.
Yeah, that's all. I'm an Athenian. That's all right. We're getting off track. Go ahead.
Yep. Anyway.
Keep talking.
Oh. I also came away from this thinking that I really love noon games. It was really nice. It's kind of like, because this is probably what a lot of folks did is I had some beer mimosas, had some beers before the game, went to the game. Third quarter, I was like, I could take a nap. Um, and then the game was
Good.
over, did take a nap afterwards, and had the rest of the day to watch football and do whatever I wanted afterwards. It was pretty fantastic. And so just wanted to say all the folks that do put this thing together, you included, thank you for allowing me to have such a nice day. Such a nice day. Because I didn't have to worry about putting any of it together, but I really enjoyed it, and I'm grateful for that. What about you? What was your day like? You woke up hella early, I
Um,
bet.
yeah, I woke up at about 4:30. I left my house at 5:45 or something, 5:30. Um, and we went and did the practice, and that went well. And then there's a lot of pressure. We've missed some days of practice because of a bunch of different issues. And so we've had to move stuff around and change our production order to like when we're playing, what we're playing, stuff. And uh, I thought it went pretty well at practice, but it's just very weird because when you have a home game, like the time is the same. Like the distance between practice and the game start is always basically the same. Like
Hmm.
you just take the game start and you back up a certain number of hours to give people time to get parking so they can actually get parking on the day of. So it's like 7 hours before the game or something when practice starts. But in a night game, in a 7 or 3:30 game, it just feels like you have a lot more time to breathe. And this was a game where in the pregame portion of it, in the sort of red coat day portion, it felt like we were pretty much walking around the whole time. Like did practice, got in the stadium, warmed up, did Sousa show, went straight downstairs to dog walk. Had about 10 minutes to stand during or to sit in the bottom of the Tate Center, the old Tate Center, before dog walk. Went out to dog walk, did dog walk, marched in up to the SLC, or marched like into the stadium. Went back into the Tate Grand Ballroom rather. Ate lunch, had about 10 minutes there, and then went and did the game and weren't done and didn't stop doing stuff until we got done with the game at 3, which is always sort of how it is, but a lot of times in the 3:30 games, the 7 o'clock games, you just have a little bit more time to breathe. Like I think we had like 20 free minutes in the entire day, whereas usually you'll have like 30 minutes to 45 minutes to just sort of like get everything situated, sit down for a second, like eat something, stare into space, not because you're sad, but because like you have to disengage at
Hmm.
some point, because you're just so engaged the whole time. And that's how it was when I was in band. Like you need time during the day to just like if you watch the Redcoats eat, a lot of time it's not like chatting and talking. It's just like a bunch of people with like a Chick-fil-A sandwich in one hand, just chewing contemplatively, like while they all just like stare into space, kind of like almost silently. It's
Hmm.
shockingly quiet. And I thought they did a really good time, a really, really, really good job at the game. This was one of those broadcasts where the Redcoats were on either audio or video a lot, and they in those moments they really came through. Um, and that's basically all you can ask for, right? I mean, you when you're prepping as a college marching band, you know, most of it is about the experience in the stadium for the people at the stadium. But there's a big portion of it where it's like, well, we might get 30 seconds on TV where it's just us and we have to look and sound good. I thought they did a good job in those moments, of which there were quite a few. As for the game, it was kind of weird. Like it was a game that was like simultaneously didn't feel like it was ever out of hand, and it
Hmm.
also felt like, well, things go a little differently. Like maybe this game's a little. I think we still win, but I just think like if things go a little differently, maybe like this game's a little bit closer. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those things where it's like I felt like it wasn't close, but I also felt like, well, if they don't have, the three false start penalties to start the game, and then if the guy doesn't muff the kickoff, right, you probably don't get that block punt, and then like I still think it would have been a Dogs win, and they might not have scored it. It might have been like not 37-0, it might have been 24-7 or something. So I don't think there's any difference in the result, but there were definitely some moments where it was like, um, good teams make their own luck. Good teams force turnovers. Good teams, you know, disrupt the other team's plan. And this was a game where UGA, in a similar style to what they've done the entire year, they just disapparated, they molecularized, they destroyed Arkansas's game plan. not even like what Arkansas was doing, like not even Arkansas physically, which I think they did. They physically overwhelmed them. But there's an element to this UGA team that I was kind of struck by in 2021, where it's like what this team does is breaks your game plan, and then they break you. That is like if you have the talent to execute on them offensively, it might not work, right? With Alabama, you might not be able to do that. But what we've seen over 5 games from this team so far is that UGA takes what you want to do offensively and just you can't do it. And then you've spent 24 hours of tape and prep work to run your offense, and you fundamentally cannot run your offense. There has not been a single team who has been able to, from like a theoretical or philosophical, standpoint, run what they want to do, right? Like Arkansas really keyed in on the outside zone run and running in the interior against like light pressure looks with the quarterback. They just couldn't do it. They couldn't swing pass. They couldn't get swing passes out. They couldn't get yards after the catch. They fundamentally could not run like who they were as like teams have identities, and that's not like coach speak. Like teams have things that yeah, that's true. Like teams have plays and styles of play and schematics that they associate themselves with and that they build their identity around fundamentally. And there has not yet been a team that UGA has allowed to express its identity in any way, shape, or form. Like they just didn't do.
It's incredibly problematic.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, in not a problematic way, but like across 5. Like, what is Arkansas? Arkansas, they rush 3, they run the quarterback, they hit the deep shot, and the only thing that Arkansas did was that out of that list was they rushed 3, and they didn't even do that very well.
It was, yeah,
so, I don't know. I mean, it was
certainly weird just to kind of watch. I kept trying to figure out what Arkansas was going to try differently. And I really couldn't even figure out what they were sort of trying most of the time because Georgia was just so definitely sitting them down.
Yeah, defensively, I think at some point they switched from they had 4 down linemen where they put like 6 or 7 in the box. But by the time they did that, it was in the second half and they were down 28 and they were just tired. And Georgia's offensive line is not quite the road grading line that it has been in the past, but it's still good enough that if they tire you out, they will just they will make your ass quit, and they did. And I think defensively, I think one of the fundamental things that we forget is that it's like whether or not this is actually true, and I do think it is true to some extent, but whether or not it's true, it doesn't matter. Something that coaches believe, regardless of its actual, sort of place in reality, is that football is essentially a game about rushing yards. Either you need to effectively gain rushing yards, effectively stop rushing yards, or you need some component of your offense that supplants those rushing yards, right? Like even the air raid guys talk about how their quick throw game replaces their rushing yards because efficiently moving the ball down the field is basically the whole game, right? And the easiest way to do that is rushing. And so except for, your Mike Leaches of the world, basically all football coaches, regardless of what they tell you, want to do that. I mean, Kendall Briles, who is a bad person and shouldn't have a job, but Kendall Briles comes from a tree that throws the ball all the way around the field, but still fundamentally is trying to get downhill and beat ass and run the ball, right? And so it's like something that I think is kind of undersold about UGA. Like currently, per our statistical, I don't want to jump the gun on our statistical profile or anything, but currently on our statistical profile, we have UGA as the, let's see, rush EPA. We have them ranked 5th in rush EPA on the year, but it's still a negative. It's negative 0.1 rush EPA per play, which means every time that another team runs against UGA, they actually lose points on their final score every time they run the ball. And that is such a backbreaking. It is such a backbreaking thing from a just fundamental game plan because you only have a certain number of plays that you prep. You can't really change your offense mid-season. You're just running wrinkles, and if the core of your offense is inside power or counter or outside zone, inside zone, wide zone, split zone, duo, whatever, if that's the core of your offense, and you literally have just a 0% success rate on it or whatever it is, that's the game. That's the whole damn game.
That's the whole tweet.
Yeah, I mean basically as soon as Arkansas figured out that they couldn't run the ball, I think they basically knew they couldn't win.
Yeah. It definitely seemed like, and it was kind of funny. It was, speaking of just run games in general and talking through rushing, it seemed like Arkansas and everybody there kind of, I didn't expect to see like, I won't say vintage Georgia, but the Georgia from past years show up at this game. Like it didn't really, especially because like the defensive scheme from Arkansas to start off, they expected Georgia to throw more, and then they kind of like inched up a little bit, and they, like you said, but by the time they did eventually change their their format, their defensive format, it was way too late at that point. They were entirely too tired and just couldn't keep up, and they just kept chipping away and chipping away and chipping away. But it was fun to watch. It was really fun to watch. I wouldn't say I missed that style of play, but it was fun to see that we still got it, because it seemed like up to this game we hadn't shown that sort of run dominance until this game, right?
Yeah. I mean, we really hadn't. UGA had, let's see, they had 83% of their power runs of less than 2 yards down a distance to go. They had 83% of them were successful. 84% of the UGA's rushes on the day were successful. 84 of their 56 rushes, because they were just basically like, we're going to just be Army now. Stop it or don't. On the other hand, they stopped the run pretty effectively. 56% success rate, or sorry, 60. Sorry, UGA ran the ball 84% of the time. Arkansas ran it 56% of the time. I misread that, but this is per our advanced stats backstore, courtesy of GameOnPaper.com/CFB, which you should check out. It's a very good website. We don't get paid by them, but they deserve it. It's just like three dudes making good stuff. But their success rate on rushing plays for Arkansas was 48%. UGA's was 52%, but it was 48% on 12 plays. They only ran the ball 12 times. They only passed the ball, or they only had 12 successful running plays. They only had 5 successful pass plays. Yeah, I mean, I guess we can like go ahead and call this our official transition into the stats talk.
Let us.
Looking at our advanced box score, is there anything that strikes you about this?
I mean,
which I will put the link on the Twitch stream right now, and also you can find this link on our Discord, and I guess I could probably put it on the tweet where we publish this tweet, or where we publish this. All right. Yeah.
Are you talking about our advanced box score that you created along with the other folks from our Discord?
No, I'm
or the game on paper
thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
The things that really stick out to me is this huge disparity in stop rate percentage. The Arkansas to stop rate for the game was 9%. 9% of the time they were able to actually stop what Georgia wanted to do. And Georgia's stop rate was 58%. And yeah, it's absolutely mind-boggling the way that this team just kind of, in a way, plays solitaire defensively. Like they set out to do a thing, and then they do the thing. Like it doesn't matter what you say, it's going to be done. Or they just take away your ball, and then that's it. Like you don't get to play the game anymore. I'm playing the game. These are my rules, and this is how we do it. Yeah, it was just anticlimactic, I think, was a great way to describe exactly what it was, because it was just such a sound defeat.
You're familiar with the concept. We've talked about this concept in the past on this show about the middle eight, which is this idea of the last 4 minutes before the half, the first 4 minutes after the half. It's the only time when you have a chance to have back-to-back possessions, basically. Arkansas had the first possession after the half. During the middle eight, Georgia ran 14 plays. Arkansas ran 6. Georgia's EPA per play on those plays is .001. That's not great. Arkansas's EPA per play on those 6 plays in the middle eight, negative .58. They lost 4 points off of their predicted score just on those 6 plays. They only had 1 successful play. It was a successful pass. They had 0 successful runs out of, well, they only rushed once, but it wasn't successful. Whereas of the 14 plays that UJ ran, they ran 14 rushing plays for 100% success rate. That is dominance. And the most important part of the game, when you can swing the game the most, when a team that is an underdog can come back from a big deficit, have back-to-back positions, especially essentially steal points from the other team by having possession before and after halftime. In that moment, UGA swallowed Arkansas whole. And I don't mean in a war way, in a way that like some person with different proclivities than mine might like. I mean, in a like anaconda unhinges its jaw and then eats an entire wild pig kind of way. Like it was not. It it was one of those things where the nature analog is a video that you don't want to watch. You know what I mean? It's a video of like a snake eating a baby rabbit. It just was
Uh-huh.
not like. I mean, I guess if you're Arkansas, it wasn't pleasant. For me,
Like,
I guess
oh,
I'm a fan of the snake in this instance.
oh, I just
I dropped my
realized.
earrings. Sorry.
Uh-oh. Nathan dropped his earring.
It's alright. Second. I had to take them out because these stupid headphones. This is great audio and video.
You're
So
doing
now
it.
I'm being bad. I'm being
Let's all
bad.
talk about the top.
It's pretty good.
It's a good top head.
It better be. There's so much of it. So let's talk about it. Any other stats that are standing off for us here?
I'd like to talk
Four
about special
sacks on
teams a
the
little
day.
bit because both
Oh, yeah,
sides of the
special teams
ball,
for sure.
special teams it was a weird day for special teams all around. I feel like both Arkansas and Georgia had just a strange day as far as special teams went. But I did have a note in my notes just about the game in general about how there were 3 illegal formation calls on the punt team for Georgia, which I thought was just kind of odd. But then I leaned over to my friend at the time and I was like, give them a break. They don't punt often, And it was just an odd moment.
I don't know how you keep getting that wrong.
It seems like an easy thing
had
to
have
get
been
right.
Something that I am imagining it was something where formationally the ref interpreted something that Georgia was doing differently than Georgia interpreted it, and what that led to was just like trying to prove a point call. That seems that to me that smacks of like as a teacher whenever you tell the kids like, hey, if you do this on your test, you're going to get a 50 automatically. And then you have one kid that you have to give 3 50s in back-to-back weeks on quizzes just to prove that, like, yes, I mean what I say. When I say if you don't have 2 quotes in this paragraph, that I will give you a 52 start and maybe lower. And then by the third one, they're like, oh, I guess that I shouldn't do that.
Guess you meant it.
That's what it felt like that to me. That like there was a ref that was just like, I'm trying to prove a point here, please.
I told you I'd do it, and I'm following through.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what other bits and pieces from this advanced box score do you want to bring up before we get into observations?
20%. They ran, let's see, 7 havoc plays for UGA, 4 sacks, 3 passes defense, 1 forced fumble. UGA continues to be dominant in that. Only gave up 1 havoc play, which was pretty impressive. Just a pass defense. And then 4 tackles for loss. And then I guess that was by Arkansas on UGA. But then also UGA had 7 tackles for loss. 5 of them were on runs. To me, I mean, the win expectancy chart really tells the tale. Like at the beginning of the game, UGA started out with about an 80% win expectancy, and the lowest it went. They started out at the first of the game with 89.3, and the lowest it ever got on the day was 86%. By the middle of the second quarter, we were at like 99.1%, and we didn't really get below that for the rest of the game. UGA continues to just generate the most ridiculous EPA lines on the day. Arkansas's total EPA for the day was negative 24 points, negative 9 points offensive EPA, or 9.52 offensive EPA. So basically, Arkansas lost 10 points off of its final score just from every time they snapped the ball on offense. Negative 11 point special teams EPA. That makes sense. Negative 2.6 penalty EPA. That is hard. That is hard to do. To lose almost 3 points off your final score just from penalties, which Arkansas was committing a lot of them. What was weird to me about that too was that like they weren't really like judgment call penalties. I mean, there was a couple of like pass interferences and offensive holdings that I thought was like a little bit iffy, but most of the penalties were pretty cut and dry. Like false start, an eligible guy downfield. I mean, I'm surprised they didn't have one that was like 2 people in the same jersey at this point. It just seemed kind of like, sometimes as a team, there are tiers of teams, and sometimes you find what the edge of that tier is. And I don't say this to make fun of Arkansas because I love Sam Pittman, and I think that he's a great coach, and I wish this Arkansas team the best, which is not something you'll hear me say about an opponent most of the time. But sometimes, and UGA fans know this, you find out what the top of your tier is, right? UGA plays Alabama in 2007. They think they're really good, and they get destroyed, right? This has happened to UGA several times in the past, and I think this is really a moment where Arkansas, I don't think this derails Arkansas season or anything. They're already playing above expectation. But I think it was definitely clear that these two teams are in different tiers and different points in the developing process, right? Do you want me to talk about our offensive footprint or our team advanced stat footprint on the year?
Before
Want to go
before
on to
we
that?
get too far into that, I do want to bring up one thing. This is kind of like a almost like a mid-year checkpoint. Someone brought up something earlier, I think today or the day before, in our Discord, and they were asking just a quick like the talking about EPA, because we talk a lot about EPA, and so this is,
Mm-hmm.
but we haven't since probably before this season discussed kind of why EPA is so important, and also the predictive nature of EPA. And I was hoping you might be able to talk a little bit about those two things before we get too far into the next segment.
Yeah. So EPA stands for estimated points added. Our two traditional stats that this podcast was sort of founded on are success rate and explosiveness. How often are you ahead of the chains, right? Do you get 50% of the yards on first down that you need? Do you get 75 on third or second down, or 60 on second down, 75 or 100 on third and fourth? Um, and then explosiveness, which is like how many points per play, like how many plays does it take for you to score a point, basically. Um, those two metrics have problems because they really they measure oftentimes diametrically different offenses, and oftentimes depending on an offense's makeup and what an offense wants to do, success rate and explosiveness might be sacrificed willingly, right? Army sometimes doesn't have very explosive teams, but they always have wishbone teams. Flexbone teams are always efficient because they just move the chains, right? Um, so those two stats, while they're very important, they have limitations, right? They don't tell you the full story, right? There's a huge difference between you have a third and three, and you get 4 yards, and you have a third and three, and you get 75 yards, right? Those are two very different plays, but success rate treats them the same, right? Similarly with explosiveness, if you have a let's say 3-play drive where you score, your first play is 1 yard, your second play is 1 yard, and your third play is 75 yards, that gets treated the same as if you have a 3-play drive where you get 25 yards, 25 yards, 25 yards, right? Now, those are very different game situations, and they reflect a very different reality in terms of just where the football game is. And the goal of advanced analytics is to see deeper into a game. So oftentimes, even really stats that we like yard lines and stuff rate and success rate and explosiveness, they don't really tell a holistic picture of how an offense is doing. And you can look at them for very specific things if you want to investigate a game deeper on a more granular level, but they're not a very good takeaway stat, right? So EPA is a stat that we really like because it allows you to basically look at the impact of every single snap of a football game. So basically the way EPA works is you take all possible variations of where a ball can be and what the down and distance can be. So everything from 1st and 10 on the 25 to 2nd and 51 on your own 20, whatever, right? And you basically say, okay, how many points on average do you score if you have the ball from this at this point? So if you have the ball 1st and 10 on the 25, how many points do you score on average from there? And then you take the next play, say 1st and 10 on the 35, and you say how many points on average do you score if you have the ball there? And then you basically subtract those two numbers and you get how many points you added. Now I'm kind of fudging the math, and there's kind of more to it than that. But fundamentally, what it allows you to do is measure both explosiveness and efficiency. Basically, it just tells you what is the impact on the plays that you've had, and it sort of treats plays differently when they deserve to be treated differently, right? So that the example that I used was success rate of like, if it's 3rd and 10 and you get 10 yards, and it's 3rd and 10 and you get 75 yards, success rate treats those the same. EPA does not treat those plays the same, right? High EPA teams tend to perform well offensively. It's a very strong correlation. EPA is a stat that has a pretty good correlation to winning. It's not, I think DocQuant, who is one of the guys on our server who's helping us with CBCR squared, who you should be following on Twitter, DocQuant. DocQuant would tell you that there's a little bit more to that and that it's not totally correlative, but it is a very helpful stat because it basically just gives you a one number thing to tell you what was the effect of this team snapping the ball. So like, okay, I'll give you an example. So Arkansas on this game, right? If you want to talk about like defensive dominance, you can talk about sacks, you can talk about tackles for loss, you can talk about defense, whatever. But if we look at Arkansas's offensive EPA, right, it was negative 9.52. So what that means is, based on how much they were expected What that means is, based on what they were expected to do, Arkansas lost a total of 9.5 points off of what we expected their final score to be over the snaps that they had offensively, right? And if we look at their per play EPA, let's see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, so Arkansas lost about 0.21 points off of their expected score every time they snapped the ball, right? And to me, that is a very sort of like good holistic way to look at a football game, right? Like, what was the effect of you snapping the ball? Not were you successful, not were you explosive. Like, how did this change what we expect the score to be? If we expect you have the ball at the 25 on 1st and 10 at the beginning of a drive, we expect you to score on average 3 points. Well, if you throw a pick six, there's a huge difference between the result and the expectation, and it allows you to just very quickly estimate like what was the impact of the offense and the defense on the final score of the game.
Boom. EPA.
Boom. Done.
I'll probably pull that out and post that somewhere. We can just hold on to that. So when people do ask, what could we go back and talk about
right.
EPA again?
Sounded
right.
Our friend R. Moore is on this live recording, and I'm sure that if I was wrong, he would be frantically texting me right now.
He's like, wait, back up.
I would have already been tagged. I would have already been tagged several times on either our private chat or on the Stats channel if I got that wrong. So hopefully, the absence of evidence isn't the evidence of absence, but we'll see.
So what other observations do we have about this game? And we can lead that into some takeaways if we'd like.
Sure. So a couple of things that I think are that make me really happy for the future of this team. One of them is just the advanced stats footprint for this team. UGA on the year has, I would say, an average to above average offense on the year. This is non-opponent adjusted, but based on the non-opponent adjusted ranks that we have for them nationally, UGA overall is 50th in EPA, so above average. There are 131 FBS teams that we track, so puts them in the, about half of a standard or a quarter of a standard deviation above average, They are first in defensive EPA, and that is a theme. Offensively on the year to this point, they have been an average to above average team. They're not very explosive. They are 25th in success rate, so they're very efficient. Stuff rate rank is 73rd, so they're getting stuffed a little bit more in the run game than they should, which is kind of pulling down both their efficiency and their explosiveness. Offensively, 39th in line yards, so even though they're getting stuffed more than they should, they're getting pretty. We're not getting stuffed; they're getting pretty good yardage. 38th in PPO. PPO is just like how well do you convert having the ball inside of your opponent's 40, so they finish drives pretty well. Havoc is 13th; they don't allow a lot of havoc. Rush EPA rank is 76th, which is really like explosiveness rank is 112th, so that's the worst number. But Rush EPA rank 76th, that's kind of what the team is, right? They're just an average to below average rushing team on the year holistically. Pass EPA rank 25th, that's very good. Standard L EPA rank 41st, pass down EPA rank 62nd. So, that pass down EPA rank probably has a lot to do with the fact that we've had to start Stetson Bennett in 2 games, although he didn't hurt that number on the UAB game. Defensively to this year, we're just looking at, what's the footprint of this team? What's the profile? First in EPA defensively, first in success rate defensively, first in explosiveness rank defensively, 12th in stuff rank, 13th in line yard rank, and then in PPO first, Havoc rank 11th, Rush EPA 5th, Pass EPA first, Standard Del EPA first, Pass down EPA third. This is the best defense in the nation, and it's not particularly close. The average EPA surrendered for a defensive team, so on average this year, when an offense snaps the ball, the defense surrenders about 0.17 points. So per every 10 plays you snap the ball, you get about 1 point against the average defense. Make sense? You with me so far, everyone? You can't respond, but I'm just going to say make sense. All right.
I'll be the
Georgia
audience.
this year, on average, every time you snap the ball against them, you lose 0.19 points. That's almost 0.2. So every 5 plays you snap the ball against Georgia's defense, you lose a point off of your expected score at the end of the game. That's what that means. It actually would have been better at times statistically, it would have been more beneficial at times on Saturday for Arkansas to take a knee than to continue to snap the ball. That's basically where we are. Like it is hard for me to. It's hard to articulate how good this defense is. Like there are things in college football. Like we started this podcast because we said sometimes what people say about the eye test is bullshit. People's traditional, the way they think about football is often wrong. The stats they look about in football are often wrong. People tend to overestimate narratives. They tend to underestimate facts. They tend to want to like make things follow the Western narrative of the the underdog wins and the plucky David, and Goliath story or whatever. But this is one of those times where you look at the stats or you look at the play on the field and you say, well, this is probably the best defense in the country.
Yeah.
And then you look at the stats and you're like, actually, it's not just the best
is.
defense in the country. It's the best defense in the country by like a pretty good margin.
Mm-hmm.
I forget who put out who put this out in our college football. So I want to attribute this correctly, but there was a very good tweet from who is this graph from? The line graph that they put up. Oh, from Tom Fornelli.
Oh, okay.
It was from Tom Fornelli, who is on I think CBS Sports Network now. But basically, he had a line graph where he plotted Power 5 contenders, and one axis is defensive success rate. So basically, like how often are you successful versus how often are other teams successful against you? And on the defensive axis, UGA is like up at the very top,
well above
the graph. Yeah, they're like an obvious dumb outlier, and like that's what I'm trying to get across. Like everybody's like, this defense is special. You should enjoy it while it lasts. That's totally true. But I think it's also worth saying that like this defense isn't just special. They're statistically anomalous.
Mm-hmm.
Like it will be a long time until UGA has another defense this good, and they might not win a national championship this year, and they might win a national championship with a better defense, or with a worse defense rather. But it will be a long time until you have a unit that is this much better than everyone else.
Yeah. It's something that we said in the preseason. I said again this weekend is that I think that one day we're going to look back at this roster and think it was absolutely illegal to put all these same players on the same team during this time.
I know that I'm about to say like some pretty big shit, especially for people who are a little bit older than us. But like there was a time like in the early 2000s where we look back and we're like, Ray Lewis and Ed Reed were on the same defense.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I think we might say that about this defense.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
Several of these players.
Like, yeah, I really do. Okay. The one other thing I wanted to talk about that I think actually bodes well for us going forward is looking at SEC StatCat's offensive concepts for the week. UGA's number one offensive concept by play share and number one offensive concept by yardage share, and their high success rate offensive concept was inside power. Now, to me, that bodes well for a couple of reasons. One, UGA has traditionally been, since we've been tracking these stats, kind of an inside zone team. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. I think that this is a sign of Todd Monken's willingness to adjust on the fly. Inside power is different than inside zone. It's not incredibly different, but it is different.
How's it
and
different?
I think in some ways it kind of, inside zone inside zone blocking schemes are a lot more about like, I don't want to say vibe. It's not like you're blocking
in a way,
on vibe.
You're right. The
zone
is kind of like blocking on vibe rather than man. You're right.
Right. You're trying to get a piece of somebody and get to the second level if you're in the interior of the offensive line. Oftentimes in zone schemes in the exterior of the offensive line, you're either trying to get someone across or you're going to leave somebody open and try to get a double team at the second level. And so, on the other hand, power is a straight up like put their ass in the ground.
I'm bigger than you.
Blocking scheme. Yeah, and I think it is a sign of how good of an offensive coordinator we have right now that we saw that we could do that against Arkansas, and clearly we could do that. And I also think it's a sign of a willingness to adjust, which is something that we have criticized this coaching staff about in the past. And I think sometimes this coaching staff gets unduly criticized for that, Alex Kirshner. Even today, I do love Alex Kirshner, so just don't make fun of him or anything, but I think he's wrong. But I mean, the fact that we ran inside power 22 times for a 63% success rate. 32% of our plays on the day were inside power for 63% success rate. That is unreal. 63% success rate is, I mean, especially on a sort of staple offensive play, is ridiculous. 18 18 attempts at inside zone, still 26% of our plays, and then 55% success rate, which is still very good. So, I mean, to me, that my observation is I don't think that people have fully honed in that this is truly a team that will take what you give them offensively, and they will go into each game plan, and they're not going to reinvent the wheel, but they're going to go into each week and they're going to try to basically destroy your game plan and execute theirs, which is pretty much what all football is about. But they've been really good at doing that on the year, and I think this is a sort of like inside baseball example of why that is, of how that happens.
Man, oh man. This game very much made me. It was probably the experience surrounding the game itself as well. It just kind of reminded me why I really enjoy this game and all the things that it is and isn't. So, what other weird observations? Any other good observations that we have?
Let's see. I wrote this last week. Elite teams destroy bad teams through 5 weeks. This is the best team in the Kirby Smart era, and it's not close. This wasn't a bad team, but we still destroyed him.
We sure did. We made them look bad. We very much like this is going to be, I think, going forward for Arkansas for the rest of the season. People are going to continue to question them and whether or not they deserve to be ranked at the number that they were going into this game, and it's going to be really hard for the next several weeks for them. And so it's very much like, it's mid-season, so you wouldn't say things like,
we don't break their
they control their own destiny. I hope that they still have a good season, and Arkansas is going to be a good team going forward as well.
So I thought Broderick Jones, he played a lot of left tackle. I thought he looked pretty good. He had one penalty, but he looked all right. I thought obviously the blocking was good, obviously, but I mean Fitzpatrick looked really good on the outside blocking today, or he had a couple of good ones, and he didn't have an obvious one that made me be like, what the hell? Put a hand on him. I thought Ladd McConkey is a weirdly good blocker, considering he's like smaller than Justin.
Yeah, he's a little guy.
He weighs like 180 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
He's really good at just sort of like, he does like flag football blocking, and I don't mean that as a backhanded compliment. He doesn't like overpower guys, but there were a couple of times on like especially long runs where he would run a dummy route, and then he would just sort of like stand in front of the guy and be like, ooga booga, and like scare him, I think the biggest play of the day was a James Cook run to the outside that was very well blocked on the inside, where basically the offensive tackle just like jacked the defensive end back into his defensive line compatriot, and then Cook got loose on the outside. But Ladd McConkey did a really good job of like, he ran a dummy route, the cornerback ran with him, and then as soon as the cornerback realizes that he needs to play run support, McConkey doesn't really block. He blocks him, but he just kind of puts his hands on him, and he's like, "Ha ha! I'm here now! Like it's me,
I got you,
lad!" And like that was enough. And so, I mean, I think a lot about blocking, I have been told by people who actually understand the game. I think a lot of blocking is just positioning and timing, and he's really good at it. I thought obviously Darnell is just. I mean, there's already a GIF going around. I'm gonna say maybe I saw it from the My God podcast guys. It might have been Dog Out West, but I don't know. There's a GIF going around where Darnell Washington just like throws a guy into the ground.
Yeah.
Like he basically comes across the formation, grabs I'm going to say linebacker, and just literally throws him into the ground. And it was like everything else on that play went wrong for Georgia, and the result was a tackle for loss for Arkansas. But that one poor linebacker who tried to fill the B gap just got absolutely planted. So that's good. It's good to see that.
Yeah.
What any observations do you have?
Yeah, like I said at the start of the show, like the crowd just played a huge part of this game, and the only reason I say that is because I'm interested in seeing how that will affect away games, especially going into Jordan-Hare. It's historically a tough place to play, and however, this Auburn team feels like a historically bad Auburn team right now. So we'll see how that actually affects it, and if the defense does travel as well as defense tends to travel. Arkansas, I was very impressed, though. Speaking of defense, I was very impressed. Arkansas had very few penalties coming into this game. They had less than 5 on average per each game, and UGA and the crowd itself, I think, drew so many. It just made Arkansas look confused a lot of times and drew them over the line. Lots of false starts, lots of offsides. It wasn't anything that was no technical fouls, nothing, personal fouls or anything like that, but very much like a UGA doing what they want to do and then executing well and making it happen. And I'm excited about that going forward as well. Like just another layer to this defense. Like the defense isn't just bigger than you. The defense is smarter than you. And that was really exciting to see. The very last thing I have on here was I think it was in the third or fourth quarter. Speaking of penalties, we didn't really know what happened. I remember there were a bunch of flags. There was like a flag up on the top half of the field, and there were a couple on the bottom. And I was just kind of like, what in the world happened? Like, they was holding on every call, of course, but this one was when the ref kind of hesitated for a moment, and then he said, "There are multiple penalties on the defense." And it was a whole bunch of different penalties, but I'd never seen so many different penalties and announced in that way. And I thought that was pretty funny. Just not much of a takeaway, just an observation, really.
Yeah, the old 3 penalties on the same defensive play one.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like it was like defensive holding, that penalty is declined. I think the other one was like offsides, that penalty is declined. Pass interference, that penalty is accepted. Like he was like out of breath at the end of his recitation of the penalties.
He had to review things before he really got into it. But takeaways from this game, you have a big one right at the top. The existential question for 2021 is JT Daniels' health.
Yeah, I mean,
what does it mean?
And really, the existential question isn't even really about JT. It's just like, what is UJ's ceiling with Stetson Bennett, and how long are they going to need to explore that ceiling? Right? I mean, I everything I've read, everything that we have heard, and I don't just say me. It's just everybody seems to agree that this is just one of those soft tissue injuries that Bennett has, that he could be good to go against Auburn. He could be out for 2 more weeks. We don't know. But I think you round into shape in the Florida game, and maybe you get Pickens back. You have Tyke Smith back healthy. You have Darnell Washington back healthy. Hopefully, you have JT Daniels back healthy. You feel good about that version of the team. And I think the next 2 weeks are kind of pivotal. I really do. I think Georgia has to prove that it has a high ceiling with Stetson Bennett on the road in a hostile environment. And I think, if you can do that against Auburn, you're going to have a very good year. And to me, these next 2 games feel like the games where you have a stumble if you're going to have a stumble, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this team full strength, I don't think that they're going to have a lot of problems with the rest of the schedule if they're full strength, honestly. I think with JT Daniels in and with getting some of these playmakers back, whether that's Blaylock or Rosemy Jackson or it's George Pickens, right? I think once you get some of those guys back and you have JT healthy, you can beat pretty much anybody. And so I really think these next 2 weeks, and I am not muncening about this game at all. I think Georgia's going to win. I think they're going to beat Auburn. But I do think that, like, if you were going to say, here's a spot where Georgia gets upset, Jordan Hare got 330 on a Saturday. I mean, crazier things have happened. Ask Alabama, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think that's going to happen because I think defense travels. I think that if you have a defense this good, they're going to be this good, and you can we could play the game in freaking Siberia, and it'd probably actually be better because they could all use Jordan Davis for warmth. But because he just like exudes heat and charm and love and light, and I love him. But I think you really have to ask. I think there's a chance that UGA wins this game and has a scare next week, right? I think there's a chance UGA wins this game like 21-10 or something, and there's a couple of key plays that turn the game. Now, I think there's also a chance that UGA just like blows the doors off this team. But I really think that my big observation through this week, or my sort of takeaway, is just what can this team be when they're not at full health? Because I think we kind of know what they can be when they're at full health.
Or at least, where we're headed with full health once it gets there, definitely. Yeah. Before we get into prediction view and Ask CBCs,
what are your takeaways?
I have some takeaways here for you. Somebody mentioned recently
I talk about them.
That we don't say borderline erotic anymore. We don't. It's not something. It's like a segment of the past or a phrase of the past. And so I wanted to bring it back just for a moment because there are a lot of really fun borderline erotic facts about this team right now that I just wanted to say into the audio sphere for everybody to enjoy, to have, and to hold, and to laud over all of your foes, your friends, frenemies, whatever you want. But just to put these out in the world. You may have seen them all in separate places, but here they all are in the same place. So first borderline erotic fact, Georgia has now scored 101 points without allowing one. Very exciting stuff. Georgia has only allowed 1 offensive touchdown for the entire season over 5 games. Georgia has allowed only 2 touchdowns at all this entire season. Georgia has won 2 SEC games by a combined score of 99-0. And across 2 top 10 matchups, Georgia has only allowed 3 points. This is an audio
that
medium.
gets a lip bite from me, dog.
I was going to say, Nathan is here just enjoying himself. This is the edging portion of the show where we
that made me feel very much like every time I see Georgia's defense walk out on the field, I'm like that gif of Denzel Washington where he's like, my man. That's how I feel every time. I'm like,
but
there goes my man.
My man. I went to the game with my friend Will, and when the Arkansas team came onto the field, Will's like a very quiet, not very outspoken, very introverted guy, and he's a man of few words, but the words he does speak are loud. And so when they came out onto the field, he hadn't really said anything for a little while. He's just kind of taking the scene in, and he goes, "Those dudes are little." Those dudes are little.
That's the thing. They're not.
They're not little dudes.
Big. It's just it's
relatively speaking. It was a very fun game.
Yeah, it's just compared to everybody else.
Mm-hmm. So prediction review, just the over-unders, going back through them.
Can we just say we had a rough day?
It was a rough day for over-unders, yeah. I mean, we thought this game would look very different. You know, we have the first one right off the bat is a 48.5 points scored. We both said over. We thought it would be a big game. Everybody, including Arkansas, thought this game was going to look like our previous 4 games. Turns out it did. We just did it differently. Turns out this team has layers.
Yeah.
325 passing yards.
Score if you want to hit the over. Just don't do the over. That's what it is. Don't do the over.
Mm-hmm.
We're idiots.
325 passing yards for JT. Didn't start. 2.5 UJ sacks. We had, 4 on the day? We both said over. That was great. Broma gave us an Ask CBC. Broma. Over under 2.5 Darnell receptions and a 0.5 Tyke interception. Neither of those things happened. So another strange over under in there. The next one, 3.5 Georgia explosive plays. We both said over. It was a little bit under. I believe it was 1 on the day total. And then 0.5 Arkansas fumbles lost under. And our total score predictions, you said 31-20. I said 41-20. By the end of the game, I thought we were about to score in those last few minutes. We ended up getting just a field goal, but we almost had a 41-0, which would have just been weird. But yeah, good game overall. Looking forward to the rest of them.
We did not have the layout of the game pegged. I don't think we've yet really felt. I feel like I had a really good feel for the Clemson game, and a pretty good feel for the UAB game. Mm-hmm. But the other 3 games, I just have not had any feel for how they were going to go.
No,
I think I'm just underestimating. I'm underestimating how good UJ's defense is. All right.
Let's hit them with our favorite segment. What do you say?
Yeah, let's do it. Ask CBC, brought to you by you, our friends, our family, our community, our patrons. Mm-hmm. Neither of our wives listen to the show, so I'm going to not say our lovers, but everything but that. So
everything but that specifically. So if you want to hear your
good
questions,
platonic that you can be. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry, you go with do the thing.
Nathan wants to keep waxing poetic to each of you, but if you want to hear your questions answered on the show, make sure you get them to us before we record. We typically record on Sundays. Today's a Monday. You know, what a work to do, but Sundays and or Wednesdays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays kind of thing. So just get them out to us. Email chapelbellcurve.com or Twitter, Facebook when it's not down. First question comes in from Joel, but spooky. Them dogs is hell, don't they?
Them dogs is hell. That's what I said. That's what I shaved into my son's head for the church service. Auburn sucks.
Getting ready for the big one. I'm going to go right to the next few that kind of have the same feel to them. Ian Boatman, just how hard does this team fuck?
You know, I think pretty gently. I think this defense is good enough to give you what you need.
Mm-hmm. You don't always have to fuck them hard.
I mean, it could be hard, you know, but they can Jack Black it too if they want to.
Sometimes it's not right to do.
Yeah, I think they're gentlemen, and you know that's how it goes. All right.
K Sarge asks, if we are still ranked 2 after this, we riot, right?
No, I want to be ranked 2.
Yeah, it feels better this way.
it's never going to happen, but I wish we were unranked. I don't care. Fuck them all.
Calm down, sir. Second question.
I want to go to the national. I want
Sarge.
to when we win the national championship. I want to come out of it like both fingers up, kicking trash cans over, like just like total knife kid energy. You know that TikTok where the kid's like, "I have a knife," and like,
what do you
the mom's
have?
like, no. Yeah, if we win the national championship, I'm gonna have a knife for the next 365 days. So get ready. All right.
Just running around the yard.
Yeah.
Second
My
question
wife
for
is
K
gonna have such a
Sarge.
problem.
Was Darnell Washington coming back the key to the run game, or did other players step up to enable it?
That is a fine. I think that Jashley just putting that out. I think that it didn't hurt, but I do think that the offensive line had a much better day.
They did. They really did. Steven asks, have you guys also reached a state of zen watching this team? I'm no longer worried in the slightest about playing a top 10 team at home. I'm not worried in the least about going on the road to Jordan Hare. Just wondering if I'm alone.
Well, joke's on you. I always have a state of zen because the Bodhisattva told us when he sat under the banyan tree, rather, that like wisdom comes from an acceptance of the temporality of all things. But yeah, in all seriousness, like I want Jordan Davis to be my like personal big spoon, like weighted blanket. So yeah.
I did try a weighted blanket for the first time a couple weekends ago. They are not joking. Those things are super dope.
The idea of a weighted blanket, like, not all the time. I don't like being confined. I have a real hard time with like MRI machines. Like, no way.
That's fair. To each their own. Christy.
Oh, it's the turf of their stadium. That place is horrible. I hate it. It's like the worst color director set in the world.
Second question. Is there a better sports TV theme song than that of SEC on CBS? In parentheses, I think not, but will CBS dare change it when they change from SEC to...
Like, how angry would you be if they were like, welcome to a bad North Carolina State team and an unaccountably good Wake Forest team. It's 12 a.m. on a Thursday. Oh, my God.
Asks, in response to the stuff between Kirshner and UGA Twitter, over under 90 FBS programs that Stetson Bennett would start for.
So there are 131.
90 seems
so you're
high.
asking me, are there 40 teams? Are there only 40 teams where he wouldn't start? I'm going to say no. Hold on. Let me just do this real quick.
That's fair. Actually, the way you put it like that, 40 teams that he wouldn't start for.
Yeah, so I think it'd be
believable.
under. Hold on, let me see. 20. Let's look at QBR. Right now, Old Stet. He's not on the first page,
himself.
so I'm gonna say he's not in the top 50. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that no, farther below. I think it's probably
It feels very situational.
He must not have enough snaps to qualify because I don't see him at like 100. Let's try the SEC. Interestingly enough, neither, end of the year, maybe he can. All right.
Eric Russell.
Red hair. You have red hair. And
It's
cyberpunk
Transistor.
Awesome. Transistor. Oh, my God.
Transistor hit his ceiling when we will most likely need to rely on him a lot this season.
Run the ball quicker. Don't hold the ball and then throw a bad pass. I mean, he'd be in much better shape.
Just get it off quicker. The last question, bonus question. Why does Lane Kiffin look like he's in a witness protection program every time he's on camera? Dude looks paranoid.
Because he knows that there's somebody has a draft out there that's going to hurt him.
Somebody knows. Somebody's out there that has his dirt. Metatazi asks, if each of our QBs were personified as a vehicle, which vehicle would they be and why?
I think Stetson Bennett is like a mid 90s Ford truck, or maybe an even older one, like a mid 60s Ford truck. It's in really good shape for its age, but pretty bad gas mileage, but reliable. JT Daniels is like a fucking Bugatti. It's just like he's in the shop a lot.
But it's not because it's broken.
He might be a little off-brand. Yeah. He just needs maintenance.
Yeah, just a little bit of maintenance. It always has to look top tier.
Did you skip the DCI question? Have we not gotten to it yet?
Haven't got to yet.
Okay.
Don't you worry. Nathan knew.
I'm excited about
DCI
that
questions coming. Okay. Tim Watts. This one came in like as we hit the record button earlier. Tim says first before he asks, hope y'all get these before you record. Would be grateful for your thoughts and insight. One, how effective has our secondary been? Has the success we've had in points allowed been predicated on the egregious treatment of offense by our defensive line, or is the entirety of our defense truly that good? I feel like Keely Ringo has been getting steadily better, but I don't know that he's actually been tested yet.
Well, I think it's a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, which is a boring answer, but I think that ultimately the thing is that this is a pretty good secondary that is made to look really good by a defensive line, but you don't become the first ranked pass EPA offense just because you have a good defensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're making plays, and I think he's right. Keely Ringo has gotten a lot better.
Mm-hmm. Next question, what can we glean from receiving production? The emergence of your boy Lad McConkey Kong in our house, and Brock Bowers versus Vandy and Archie were great, but I'm not sure if it was a case of the next man up concept working, or if we should be happy that we played these opponents while we're still getting pass catchers healthy.
Well, I think, again, a little bit of column A and column B. I think if you're asking, are those two guys a mirage? I don't think so. I mean, we played Vanderbilt for a long time. When's the last time we had a tight end run for a touchdown? But I think they're both pretty legit, and I think we were lucky that we could find some of these weapons against lower ranked teams. But I think that they will come through in big spots as well.
Mm-hmm. All right, Nathan, here's your time to shine. If this Georgia team were a DCI core, who would it be? Can be a year, outfit, or just a core in general? Those of you that don't know, DCI is basically like the professional top tier marching band, to put it lightly.
If you don't like drum corps, I suggest that you just scooch forward, like,
take you to school.
I'm going to say 30, 45 minutes. No, I mean, like, a minute or two. So I want to say the Blue Devils because I really like the Blue Devils, and I have two very good friends who are on staff and were Blue Devil alums. But the Blue Devils are Georgia. I'm sorry. The Blue Devils are Alabama. It's just what it is.
Mm-hmm.
They're Alabama.
That's fair.
Like the Blue Devils have the most money. They have the most talent. They win, and people hate them at shows, but they usually deserve to win. I remember when I saw Metamorph on the field, I was like, yeah, they're gonna win.
Yep.
There it is.
It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, of the I think 2 or 3 highest scoring shows in the history of drum corps, I think Blue Devils have either 2 or 3 of them, depending on where that Cavalier show was. Man,
I was always a Blue Coats fan. They always had
I love
really
the Blue Coats.
Fantastic.
To me, the
line.
Blue Coats. To me, the Blue Coats are a little bit more like. They're kind of more of like Oregon. You know what I mean? Where it's like they've won a lot, but they've really had like a renaissance. They've been around for a long time, but they sort of just like started getting it. I want to say, I think I'm going to say it's either Scouts or Cadets. And I'm trying to think about, or sorry, it's either Scouts or Cavies. It's either Madison Scouts or the Cavaliers. And I think that's kind of the profile because these are two historically very good corps who have had a lot of success in the past that had some sort of like existential questions over the past 15, 20 years, right? Really, really very good in the early 2000s, had sort of a drop off and have kind of come surging back in both accounts. And I know that people have pretty polarizing opinions about Madison Scouts versus the Cavaliers, so I'm not going to pick a side, but I would say that that's probably the sort of that's probably the profile. I saw they didn't do grades for DCI this year, but I thought the Cavaliers sounded really good. Their brass sounds really good right now. Mm-hmm. I don't think that they're quite like the Death Star that the Blue Devils are or whatever. The problem is, I don't know, probably like over the past few years, if you're taking just like the past few years, it's probably the Blue Coats because the Blue Coats have been like 1B, 1B, 1B. Like they've either won or been second for the past 2 or 3 years. But I think historically it's probably the Cavs or Scouts. I'm probably going to lean Cavs because they had a lot of early success in the 2000s and the 80s. Best original show? Okay, so but Crown has only won 1, and they don't have the historical. I mean, Vanguard actually fits. I think Vanguard is probably the closest because Vanguard has a recent one, and they are super talented. And also, Vanguard, they have a traditional rivalry with Cavaliers, but they also are a very, California foil to the Blue Devils. So yeah, I'll change my answer to Vanguard. SCV is a good answer. Very good, Jashley. All right, everybody else, we're gonna stop talking about drum corps.
All right, what Super
Yeah,
Smash
but
Bros?
don't the cabbies in
Uh-oh.
SCV have like the noose thing where the one who loses gets the noose? One of my friends was in Cavs and was telling me about that. Anyway, yeah, it's a thing. All right, go ahead. Sorry, we're back.
What Super Smash
we're back
Brothers?
on non-drum corps.
What Super Smash Bros. Ultimate character are Jordan Davis, Samir White, and Stetson Bennett?
Let's see. I'm not a
Jordan
big,
Davis
like,
is Bowser. Just huge. So much bigger than everybody
I don't
else.
know. Like I would say is like who's the most broken character in Super Smash Brothers? Is it like Luigi? Who's the cheat code character?
That's Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett is Luigi, obviously.
Well, no, I mean I'm trying to think about like these players as, oh yeah, Persona 5 Joker. Yeah. Jordan Davis is Persona 5 Joker because like not personality wise, because obviously he's not a skinny Japanese boy who turns into like a big giant like metaphysical character, but he is the guy who is the most broken. He like if you patch Jordan Davis into a game, yeah. If you patch Jordan Davis into any game, people will be like, "This is not fair. Nerf Jordan Davis."
Nerf Jordan Davis. Unfair. Samir White is I feel like Samir White is kind of like a Ganondorf kind of character, just real big, very strong.
Or he's like
hits hard.
Yeah. He's. I think Mr. Game & Watch is somebody on our. When I said who's the best, somebody said Mr. Game & Watch if you know him well, and I think that's Stetson Bennett, right? Kind of non-traditional, but if you can get something out of him if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, you know the buttons.
Yeah.
Final question from Tim is Lane Kiffin the biggest asshole?
I like Lane. I mean, he's an idiot, and he admitted he shouldn't have said what he said. He made a comment about get your popcorn before the Alabama game because he was hyped up, and then he made a joke. He apparently joked at halftime that apparently they left the microwave unplugged, which I thought was hilarious.
That was very funny. No, I think
there are a lot bigger assholes in CFB than Lane Kiffin.
Yeah, like Dabo Swinney.
And the only difference is that he says it out loud instead of in the church service or at some weird Jacksonville club, Urban Meyer.
He says it there too. I think Lane Kiffin definitely says it at the church service.
Yeah, but he says it like in both places. He's not a hypocrite.
That's true.
About it.
Yeah, that's very true. He never hides it. And Tim ends with go Dogs forever and ever. Amen. And
amen.
Couldn't agree
and
more.
Also with you.
And also with you. We got a couple more segments real quick before we wrap up. We'll get through them real quick. The first one is the Dr. James Bearfield Troll Corner, presented by Cheer Wine. It's the wine that gives you diabetes. TM. First question is, does Zeus have Megan knees? And you might have to look this one up because we did.
Yeah, it's a TikTok. Okay, I just want to say that, yes, we are middle-aged men now. That's fine. But, like, I'm on TikTok a lot, and I had not seen this. And I looked at the original. It doesn't have that many views. Anyway. Yeah, sure. It's like, one of those.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's all about how it's like her and her boyfriend, and her knees can go lower than his because, humans have different physiology based on their gender. Women's center of gravity is in their hips, so they can get lower to the ground. Come on.
Now I understand. Thanks. Thanks for breaking it down. If you get 171 more yards of offense and still lose, it's the player's fault, not the coach's, right?
He's talking about Dan Mullen, who sort of blamed his inexplicable loss to Kentucky. Not inexplicable. They beat that ass. Love you, Turner Hawkins. They blamed their loss to Kentucky on the players, which totally their fault and not his fault for being a bad coach.
James asks, or just kind of demands, give me a poem, Englishman.
I'm only going to read one stanza of this because it gets pretty brutal. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
This is called We Had Seen a Pig by Marvin Bell. Stanza 1, or I guess chapter 1 in this instance. One man held the huge pig down, and the other struck with an ice pick into the jugular, which is when we started to pay attention. The blood rose 10 feet with force while the sow swam on its back as if to cut its own neck. Its fatty back smacked the slippery cement while the assassins shuffled to keep their balance, and the bloody fountain rose and fell back and rose less and less high until the red plume re-entered the pig at the neck, and the belly collapsed and the pig's face went dull.
Yeah, I got pretty dark, huh?
Yeah, there's 4 more of those and they don't get better. So, yeah, there's mine.
There it is. Next question is, must Champa Florida insurgent spy sent to sabotage our punts?
No, he was a triple agent the whole time.
You might not have
No,
heard
he's
this
not.
not watching, since you were at the game, but this question has
I
to do with the
saw the
broadcast.
spaghetti and catfish. Yeah, I saw it.
I want to eat it. If I start eating spaghetti and catfish, will I be as good as N'Kobe Dean? James asks. There's only
No,
one
you
way
had
to
to
find
start
out.
when you're like 3 years old, I think. But I do think that it sounded to me like he was saying when he eats spaghetti, he has fried catfish with it, right? Or was he saying like
Maybe.
spaghetti, sauce, broken up pieces of fried catfish?
I mean, if it's all there, you just put it all in the bowl, I think.
No, no. You know what? If that's what N'Kobe does, God, it's working. So
Yeah. If we were the ones who womp, what does that make Arkansas, Walt Jr. or Skyler?
Skyler, he's the most Arkansas person in the world.
And the final segment of the show has become its own segment. Yara, Rage Against the Machine, rages so hard today for this game. So I'll just kind of get angrier, I guess. Okay. Tag yourself as a moment in the game. I'm the block punt or the 2 false starts because that shit was fire.
I would say I am when Jordan Davis tackled a guy and then celebrated while still laying down on the ground.
Is JT Daniels gonna be okay, dude? I know it's a lat injury, but still. Also, do you think he's gonna dip next year because he isn't playing as much this year?
He's going to dip because he wants to make money in the NFL, not because he isn't playing. And he's going to play as soon as he's healthy. And is he okay? We'll see.
Hey, besties, why are we still number 2, not number 1? Question mark, question mark, question mark,
Because
question mark, question mark.
Alabama hasn't really shown that many chinks in the armor other than the fact that their defense is not that good this year.
But we do have 2 number 1 votes. Or no, not 2 number 1 votes.
No, I think it was like 11 on the AP vote or something.
Yeah. 3 words to describe the game. Go.
I like pulled pork. That's 4. I'm bad at this. I would say elite, anticlimactic, and relievingly boring. Oh, I fucked it up again. You'll see. I got. All right.
Wait, so is Auburn good this year? I read they're significantly better than last year.
I don't know how good they are. They've only played. Pork was forked. That's a much better answer, Justin Smith. Thank you. They basically played really well against bad teams and teams with bad defenses, and really poorly against good teams. So, is Georgia State a good team? I don't know.
No, decidedly not. If you were to choose any song, piece of music ever to be turned into a stance tune, what would you choose?
Well, the 2 that I always advocate for are Kylo Ren's First Order theme from the score to The Force Awakens, which is very good. I think it would be a good defensive stance tune. And then there's this piece called "Say You Won't." It's by Brass Tracks that I don't think anyone's ever going to play because it's very obscure. But yeah, those would both be good. Oh God, I Write Sins Not Tragedies would just be funny. Josh Lee suggested Saturday Night, Panic at the Disco. That'd also be a good one. And that made me think about I Write Sins Not Tragedies.
What's the most interesting dream you had right recently? Well, oh, damn it. I can't be mad and talk too fast. Because deadass last night I had a dream I played Battle Hymn on fucking sousaphone. It was insane. Tell me.
I recently had a dream that I was teaching magic in my classroom. And that was my curriculum, and we were gonna have an EOC, and it was gonna be a big tournament. What about yours?
I don't. I'm just gonna share. I don't remember my last dream I had, but Anna used to have this kid named Jack who was very Eastern European, and he no joke spoke with the stereotypical Eastern European accent. He was 5 or 6 years old, but they had one year they had an MLK. I have a dream, or I had a dream assignment, and so they were given the prompt I have a dream that blah blah blah, and they had to write what their dream was. And Jack's was, I have no dreams, only nightmares. And we say that to each other all of the time, but that's how Jack speaks, and Jack had no chill. Love that kid. But next question. What is the CBC's official stance on a sousaphone kick line visual? I want it to happen so badly.
I mean, that's fine. We can try to put it in somewhere, but we're gonna have to have a place where we can put the horns down. Because there's no possible. I don't think we could ever do it wearing the horns.
You can't get your high knees up? I bet you could do it.
Not if you want like a can.
Mm-hmm.
Like, only one of the two of me and Yara is gonna get in trouble if someone gets hurt doing this. It's me.
All right, final question. Why were there so many MF penalties if Arkansas is, in parentheses, was LMAO a number 8 team? Like, I genuinely don't get it.
Well, they just self-destructed because they couldn't deal with our intensity. So yeah, that's why.
Much like this game.
They couldn't handle this juice.
They couldn't handle the juice. Get the juice. They came through. They got whomped. They got touched badly. It hurt. I hurt them.
We are the ones who womp.
They got their bells rung. They came through. Sit down. Hey, Arkansas. Sit down, Arkansas.
Sit down.
All right. Do you want to see us out?
Yes. This has been Chapel Bell Curve. If you like what you heard here today, feel free to hit us up at any of your fine podcast DAs of choice with a rating and review. If you would like to support this podcast, you can find us on Patreon at patreon.com/Chapel Bell Curve. There, for as little as $1, you can get access to our Discord, a burgeoning community of weirdos who are currently talking about whether or not the Redcoats should play a Panic at the Disco song. If you would like to get in touch with us, you can find us on Facebook at Chapel Bell Curve or Instagram and Twitter at Chapel Bell Curve. You can also email us at chapelbellcurve@gmail.com. If you would like to yell at us in person, you can find usually me by the Redcoats in the middle of the band. And, show up when you roll up, I guess, or whatever. But, be ready because, talk shit, get hit, I guess. We will catch you this weekend in the loveliest little village on the plains, which doesn't have its own Walmart, or in the Classic City. Yep, Auburn doesn't have a Walmart. You have to go to Opelika. Anyway, or in the Classic City. That is absolutely true. Or in the Classic City. Auburn sucks. Or in the Classic City. But until then,
go Dogs. I got you.
There it is.
Zatarans.
What is this? 5.09?
Yeah.